Earlier, I told you that we use the loading property to implement a loading indicator. So when we call the server, while we're waiting, we should set the loading property to true. And in our UI components, we should show or hide a spinner depending on the value of this property. So let me show you the steps that we have to follow to implement a loading indicator. First, we have to define a new action called bugs requested. Then we need to define a new reducer for handling this action. So in that reducer, we're going to set the loading property to true. And then we have to change our middleware to dispatch this new action before making an API call. This is pretty easy. So we go to our bug slice. Here we're going to add a new reducer. And as you know, this will automatically create an action for us. So that's going to be called bugs requested. Now in this function, we're going to set bugs.loading to true. And that means after we received the list of bugs from the server, we should set the loading property to false. Pretty straightforward. Now we need to pass this new action to our middleware so it will dispatch it before making an API call. So down below, first, let's extract this new reducer, bugs requested, so we can reference it down below. So over here, we're going to add a new property called onStart and set this to bugs requested the type. Next, we should go to our middleware and give it the ability to dispatch this action before making an API call. So here's our middleware. On line 9, we have to extract the onStart property. Then we're going to dispatch an action with this type, onStart. Now, it is possible that onStart is not defined, so we should dispatch this action only if onStart is defined. Let's test our implementation. Save. So here we have 4 actions: API call began, bugs requested, API call success, and bugs received. The order of these actions is a little bit weird. It would be nicer if this action was dispatched first. So requesting the list of bugs leads to an API call. Back to our middleware. Earlier, I told you that by calling the next function, we allow this action to appear in Redux DevTools, API call began. So to change the order of these 2 actions, we have to call the next function after dispatching this action. So I'm going to bring next down like this. Save the changes. Take a look. Bugs requested, API call began, API call success, and bugs received. Beautiful. Now let's look at our state changes. So the moment we're requesting the bugs, the loading property becomes true. And once we receive the bugs, loading becomes false. Perfect. Now, what if something goes wrong? So in our API middleware, I'm going to change the port to 9002. Save the changes. Now, if you look at the state, you can see that the loading property is still true because we don't have a reducer for setting the loading property to false if we couldn't get the list of bugs from the server. So in our bug slice, let's add a new reducer. I'm going to call this one bugs request failed. Now, here we're going to set bugs.loading to false. Next, we extract this action, bugs request failed, and then we should pass it to this function. So on error, we're going to dispatch bugs request failed. Now, take a look. So in this case, we have an extra action. After this action was dispatched, the loading property became false. Now, if you look at the console, you can see this error. A non-serializable value was detected in an action. This happened when we tried to dispatch this action. API call failed. So we put the error object in the payload, and that error object is not serializable. To solve this problem, we should go back to our middleware, and in our catch block, where we are dispatching these 2 actions, we should replace error with error.message, which is a string, and that is serializable. Save the changes. The error is gone. Beautiful.